Hey guys, welcome to Pencil versus Pixel. I'm your host, Caesar, and I'm very pleased to announce my next guest. Actually, two guests. Mr. Dan Kuhlken and Nathan Goldman of DKNG. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
DKNG is a design and illustration studio well known for their amazing poster designs. They have regularly worked with some pretty big names, so let me just name a few here. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Adam Carolla, The National, Bon Iver, Explosions in the Sky, Eric Clapton, that's like huge, Jack White, Portlandia, I mean, it goes on and on and on. So guys, before we get started with the show, I'm going to ask you what I ask all of my guests. Pencil or pixel? And I guess we'll start with one of you. So whoever wants to take a dive.
I'm going to say vector and just
Nice.
spin the whole thing.
Nice.
I'll say pixel, but I thought Dan was going to say pencil, and the fact that we said something opposite was going to be a smooth transition into how we actually work. But
Yeah.
That would have worked out. But still, this is good. This is good. I like vector. That's a new one. That's definitely a new one. So guys, I've given a little background about DKNG, but let's go ahead and get to know you a little bit better. So go ahead and give us an overview of what you do.
We bill ourselves as a full-service design studio, so any type of graphic design. But we really started out doing gig posters, and that's kind of what we're known for, what we're really passionate about. But at this point in our career, we also have a lot of corporate clients. So I think one thing that keeps us excited and passionate about the business is that every day we have some new, very different type of project to work on.
Nice. So what's the genesis of DKNG? How did it all begin?
We were friends in high school, and we were on the track team together, and I was playing music with a friend of mine, and we were looking for a drummer. Nathan filled that spot, and our friendship kind of began from there. And, we collaborated in a creative way for a while through the band, and once the band broke up, we basically continued working together and doing graphic design and illustration.
Nice. So did you start with, so I know you guys through a lot of gig posters, a lot of music show posters. Is that sort of how you started, or was it something different, another area of design, or how did it kind of get to that point?
Yeah, that was definitely one of the first projects, but the very first one, I was working at USC at their design studio, and Dan and I had started talking about possibly collaborating, and the first project that we did together was on a book that I was working on the cover design, and Dan created the chapter illustrations that started each chapter in the book. So that was kind of the first DKNG official collaboration, I guess, but shortly thereafter, we got the opportunity to design a few posters for the Troubadour in LA, and those we gave them 3 initial gig posters just as kind of a pitch to them, and they liked them, and then it just kind of went from there and started doing all the gig posters.
So were you doing this sort of on the side for when you started, or?
Up until a year ago, I was actually still working there as the director of their in-house design studio. Dan had already started working at DKNG full-time. We've been both full-time DKNG for about a year now.
Okay. So, go ahead, Dan.
So right behind Nathan is the first 3 posters that we ever
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
Oh, nice. At the very top?
Yeah.
Those are like literally the first 10 posters we made for the Troubadour.
Nice.
Basically our portfolio that got us going.
Yeah.
Was it those posters that got you going with the Troubadour? Kind of open the doors more?
Yeah, we just kind of started building our portfolio with them, and I'd say once we had about 20 or so posters under our belts, we started hearing from other bands, and it just started growing from there.
So again, let me go back to the work situation here. So you were working at USC. Dan, were you working anywhere else, or did you just say, hey, this is what I'm going to start doing?
I, throughout college, had like freelance gigs, and they weren't by any means like a full-time gig or anything like that. It was more like a side thing while I was going through school. I know Nathan was doing the same thing. And then once college ended, I tried going through it for a little bit, just with my freelance clients, but it wasn't nearly enough to make ends meet. So I decided to take on a job, and embarrassingly enough, it was for Ed Hardy. And I made t-shirts basically for, I think, about 8 months until I got really, really, really fed up with it, and decided to go back into the freelance thing and really dedicated myself to it, and knew that I had to make it work. Otherwise, I'd have to go back to another job that I probably wouldn't like. And meanwhile, working at Ed Hardy, copying and pasting tattoos onto shirts, basically, Nathan and we're still making posters together, and I was essentially moonlighting and more interested in the stuff I was doing on the side. And it was just very clear to me that I wasn't enjoying my job, and I really wanted to only do DKNG stuff. So at a certain point, I took the plunge.
So Dan, did you decide to, at a point, actually, let me ask you this. Creatives need to kind of hear a little bit more about how people transition into their own career. Did you, at a point, I don't know, sort of save money to do this on your own? How did it all work out? Or was it really difficult? Did you just say, hey, I'm going to take it. I'm taking the plunge. I'm doing this, no matter what.
I just basically told myself that I have to do it, and it wasn't easy by any means. I fortunately saved up enough money with working from my previous job to kind of keep myself afloat, and if I had like a month in the red, I'd be able to like take from my savings account. But it really was only a couple $1,000s, and that quickly went away when push came to shove. So at a certain point, I remember one month I did ask my parents for $1,000, and that's the only time I've ever asked for money. And so I made it work since then, and I paid them back. But I'd say the first year was remarkably making the perfect dollar for each month to survive, and literally having nothing to show for it. But other than the work that was being made, but at the same time, it wasn't miraculous work. I was taking on a lot of small gigs and stuff that I would never take on now, but it was just to make ends meet. So yeah, it was definitely hard in the beginning, but it led to what we're doing now, which I always advocate that hard work really gets you to where you want to go. There's no guarantee how long it's going to take, but it's not going to be quick.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. That's huge. And Nathan, you said you up until a year ago, you've been working there. So what made you decide to take the jump and say, hey, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to take it full time. We're going to take it to higher levels and make it happen.
Yeah, it was definitely a tricky decision, and one that I actually wanted to jump in full time earlier, but it was kind of a balancing act between feeling like I was getting some value out of my day job that I could then apply to our business. So in the case of, at a fairly young age, I was promoted into this role as the director of another design studio. I was able to kind of learn how to run a design firm on someone else's dime and with their resources. So I think it's definitely something that helps our business to this day, seeing how another design firm works. But yeah, it basically just got to a point where I was, I couldn't wait to get home and work on DKNG stuff as opposed to the stuff I was working on at my day job. And, essentially I had 2 full-time jobs and just something had to give. So, it made sense to finally pull the trigger and pursue it full-time. And yeah, it's been awesome. It's been, the most fulfilling year of my professional career so far. So, I think we're both excited about the direction of the company right now.
Awesome. So did you guys both of you know that you want to work for yourselves at an early stage in your life, or was it sort of something that grew over time?
I knew that I wanted to be a professional artist in some shape or form. I didn't know if that meant owning my own business. I never thought of it that way. I more thought of it as people are going to give me money for making art. I really didn't think of anything anything beyond that. But I think once I got into college and realized that, you do need a degree and a resume, and it's all very professional. And I was just came to my senses. I was realizing I can't just be like a painter and just hope for the best. Like, I really have to be knowledgeable about all assets of this whole art industry. And I definitely have learned a lot about the business side of things by doing it firsthand. So I don't know. It's been a long process, but a lot of it's just kind of touch and go.
Yeah, it could be a tough challenge when you're making art, but then at the same time running a business. That's another monster, And so I mean, DKNG is only the two of you, right?
Yes.
It's only the two of you. So what made you choose to stay a small company? Because you guys have been doing this for a long time. What made you choose to say, we're not going to hire anyone, we're not going to bring anyone else in, we're going to handle everything ourselves?
Yeah, I think we're strong believers in growing when it hurts and not just because we can. We do work with other people on specific projects. So there are, like, my brother is a web developer and he helps us with web projects, and my old boss from USC is a great freelance designer now, and we bring him in for certain projects. But I think we're probably still a couple years away from hiring our first full-time staff member. I mean, we also have an intern now that kind of helps with shipping our orders from our web store. So we supplement where we need to, but I think what keeps the artwork at the quality that we hope we can achieve is just that it is small. It's just the two of us working on it. I think some people are even surprised that we can collaborate so much, and it seems like just one person would want to be doing that. But yeah, I think within the next couple of years we would consider expanding a little bit and possibly having some staff. But I think both of us like the idea of a small company and not letting it grow too big that we kind of lose sight of being able to focus on all the day-to-day design work.
What would you say that led to that philosophy, to that way of thinking of keeping everything small, as opposed to hiring a bunch of people?
Yeah, well, I think part of it for me is that my work experience outside of DKNG has been at either Warner Brothers or USC, which are two huge companies essentially, and just seeing all of the bureaucracy and red tape that you kind of have to deal with at a huge company. And then I think looking at a lot of the design firms and designers that we admire that are a little bit smaller, maybe under 20 people or so, it just seemed to gel with our personalities and way of thinking about work a little bit.
Nice. So I'm going to change it up a little bit here. So tell me about a time when you fell just flat on your face. Something didn't go right. Something went haywire. Anything. What was it, and what did you do about that?
I do remember a moment where I had a total panic attack that I lost a file that I've been working on for the past 3 months or something like that. I was so disorganized with keeping things on my computer, and I had a whole bunch of stuff on my desktop that I just assumed it was in a folder, and I basically threw it away on accident. And all I had was a flat image of what I created, and it wasn't the layered version. And it came to the point where we had to deliver that to the client, and I had my moment of thinking, holy crap, I'm screwed. There's nothing I can do about this. I would have to start from scratch. But then, after really calming down and thinking about it, I was able to take that high-res flat image and cut it up and reproduce the backgrounds and basically patch things back together. But it worked, and it was usable on their ends. But that probably was that was a big heart attack for me, because it was such a serious project, and it was one of our first big clients too.
Wow. So what'd you learn from that?
We learned to get Dropbox.
Yeah,
So.
I was talking to Aaron Draplin. He had a similar situation where it was a big client. He didn't have the original file. He just had like a JPEG, and yeah, he quickly learned about that, and he decided to jump onto the Dropbox bandwagon,
Yeah.
it does help, right?
It does. We had Time Machine set up with like 2 hard drives in 2 different locations, and we thought that was enough. But then we realized that we want to have access to these things constantly, and we also want to be able to make sure that our archive is up to date. And so we just decided to get like a very robust Dropbox account that holds everything, and we know that no matter what happens, it's going to be in the cloud. And even if both our offices burn down, we're still fine.
Definitely. Nathan, anything like that happen to you?
I was trying to think more along the lines of when we delivered something to a client where they just said, absolutely not, this doesn't work. Luckily, in most cases, we're able to kind of cut that off at the pass by delivering a sketch or something and get that shot down first rather than the final artwork. But yeah, there have been a few times when, we delivered final artwork and the band or whoever the client was said thanks but no thanks. And it's pretty heartbreaking at the time, after putting in so much work into a project just to have it disappear. But that being said, I'm trying to remember who the designer was. An older famous designer did a presentation that was only about his work that was denied by clients, basically rejected. It was Milton Glaser, and all of the work that he had rejected by the likes of American Airlines and huge corporations. And seeing that was very reassuring to know that even the best of the best at the top of the industry, a lot of their work never sees the light of day. So that's not a specific example, but I guess something for designers out there to feel a little bit better about themselves when their work does get rejected, because it happens to everyone.
I'll try to get a link of that video on the site. You said Milton Glaser?
Yeah.
So tell me, what does a creative have to do to be at the level of DKNG, be up there? Have these great clients, awesome names. I mean, Eric Clapton. I was just like blown away. Love Eric Clapton. Without advertising for themselves, or without. I don't know. What do you guys suggest? What do you recommend? What advice do you have?
I wouldn't say that we don't advertise. It's not like we pay people to advertise for us, but we're very active in terms of sharing our work and being as open as possible when it comes to social networking. I think over the course of the past 4 years, I've been trying to make us as active as possible in all the very popular networks like Twitter and Facebook, and most recently Instagram and Pinterest. And whenever we create something, we make sure the world sees it immediately. And I think a lot of our work comes from that, where people, for some reason, see it through a blog and it ends up going to our website. Then they click that contact button and email us saying, hey, we really like what you did for so-and-so. And that moves on to the next project. So in a way, it is advertising, except we're doing it ourselves. And,
I really like the videos that you put together, the stop motion videos, or is it stop motion or?
I guess theoretically it's stop motion. It's basically taking a screen grab, a snapshot of our screen every second. So yeah, it's the equivalent of a stop motion with a camera.
Those are really powerful. I haven't seen many designers sort of put their work out there. I mean, that's hours and hours and hours of work in one 2-3 minute video, right?
Yeah,
pretty much.
And I was noticing recently, actually, that you can, I think on both of our computer screens, you can see the status bar at the top and actually see the clock. So
wow.
People that are actually interested could go in and figure out how many hours went into each one.
So guys, our community of creatives need to hear a little more actionable advice. What tips do you have for the person who wants to take the leap and at some point in their career work on their own, have their own company, or become a freelancer?
I guess I would say it takes a lot of hard work, and you got to be a person that doesn't mind working long hours. What comes with that in this industry is being passionate about what you do. No one wants to work really hard on something they're not really into. So for us, sometimes it doesn't even feel like work, and we just realize we worked a 12-hour day, and it's because we were creating a poster that we're really into, and we just got sucked into it. So it is a combination of just passion and hard work, and I think if you can have those two things, you have pretty good set of tools.
Nice.
Yeah, and one thing to follow up, we were talking about advertising, and I think in terms of designers promoting themselves, I think sometimes designers coming right out of school feel like they have to just throw everything that they've done into their portfolio. And I think one thing that we have learned, and one thing we try to do with our website, is really try to emphasize the things that we're most proud of, that are going to bring in the kind of work that we're interested in, and don't feel the need to just plaster everything you've done. Because, you know, if you want to be a web designer, but all you have is logo and branding design, no one's going to seek you out as a web designer. So I think people can do a good job of setting themselves up for the type of work they want to do by kind of positioning their portfolio correctly.
That actually reminds me of when I was in college and I had two portfolios, one outside the school and one inside. And when I was applying for the graphic design program at my college, you really only could show what you've created in school. They ask for a specific amount of things from all these different genres. So you need like a poster, a branding project, a packaging project, photography, and they're really trying to produce a jack of all trades. But when I showed my two portfolios to teachers, they're basically saying, "You're not really into schoolwork, are you?" And they saw the posters and they're like, "You should be doing this." And don't feel bad if, you know, we're not going to promote your other work because clearly your work outside of school is better. And, you know, I was collaborating with Nathan, so it was both of our work kind of combined into one portfolio, but it was a big, you know, shock to me to realize that it's not all about what your college says you should do. It's more about what you're interested in. And I think a lot of people think that they need to follow a set of rules in order to get by. But it's really about what makes more sense for you personally.
That's a great tip. So, I mean, you're saying, hey, if you like whatever it is, go for it. Try to do that.
I mean, I've done a couple critiques or portfolio reviews, and there's some students that brought in their portfolio and they had like amazing work, and then they had a couple pieces that were totally off-putting because they weren't great. And it makes a portfolio look horrible because you're basically showing this huge variety, but no focus. And then there's this other guy that came and just brought an iPad and showed all his motion graphics, and that's all he had. And out of like the 200 students that I saw, I probably would have hired him because his work was phenomenal. And I don't care if he can't make a logo, he can make beautiful graphics and make a move. It's like, if you're hiring somebody for that, you're going to get a job. But if you're looking for somebody that can do everything, which I'm not really sure how often that's really the case, it's not something I would be looking for. I think if we were to hire somebody, we'd be looking for a specific task or a specific trait.
Yeah, I think what Dan is saying about being passionate about what you're doing and spending 12 hours a day and not even noticing, I think that's a hugely important part of it, because the truth is that even if no one was paying us, and even in the past when no one was paying us, we're both designing every day, and we're going to do it whether the client is there or not. We're lucky enough that we do get to be paid for our hobby, essentially. But I think if that passion is not there, it's going to be a lot more difficult to kind of build your career on your own.
Awesome. Okay, so we're about to wrap things up right now, but before we do that, tell us about any news, any exciting stuff happening with DKNG.
I'm not sure when you're going to be announcing this, but this weekend we're doing Bumbershoot in Seattle, and it's kind of a special trip for us every year. But what makes this one even more special is that we got to do the branding and key art for the festival, and We're selling our work at Flatstock, which we also did the brochure artwork for that. So we're kind of threefold having this presence at this festival, and it's nice to be that versatile, I suppose. And then after that, we're actually going to Chicago to the Renegade Craft Fair for our second year. And we're going to be basically on tour for the next couple weeks, right after we just moved into our new places. But then we'll start emptying boxes when we get back.
Awesome. So before we wrap it up, where can we find you besides DKNGstudios.com? Where else can we find each of you?
In terms of our social networks, basically you'll find all that on our website. Just click any of those buttons and you'll become our friend on whatever network you're on. But we have personal Facebooks as well. I'll be a friend with whoever wants to be my friend.
Yeah. At DKNG Studios on Twitter. DKNG Studios is our Instagram. But yeah, if you go to our website, you can get all that. And we do have a newsletter that we send out about once a month or so with new prints and our events. So you can sign up for that on our website as well.
Nice. So you heard that, everyone. You could find everything on DKNGstudios.com. And if you, for some reason, can't get to the website, just go to pencilversuspixel.com. That's pencilvspixel.com/DKNG. Nathan, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time and doing the show. And we'll catch you soon.
Thanks for having us.